empty container of paint from his father's newly painted dairy and asked Anjali what they should paint, she knew just how she'd do it. She and Irfan would paint Q, short for Quit India, on the bungalow he worked out of. Maybe then Captain Brent and the other British officers would finally leave India for good. Over the past few weeks, it seemed like all the British officers' houses and workplaces but Captain Brent's had been vandalized with a Q. He was definitely one of the more intimidating British officers, ordering everyone around regardless of their caste, acting like all Indians were untouchable. But what right did he have when he had no caste? What Anjali was about to do was terribly wrong and terribly dangerous, but she raised her paintbrush to the crumbling concrete anyway. "Just do it before he sees us," hissed Irfan, playing anxiously with his curls. "I am," Anjali told him, irritated. "And relax. Everyone is still eating breakfast. The streets are empty. No one can see us." Irfan motioned behind them. Across the street, a small girl coated in camel-colored dust was crouched on the footpath near the empty pan stall, collecting a stray newspaper page that the panwala used to wrap his beetle leaf treats in. The girl's eyes met Anjali's, but Anjali didn't bother hiding the paintbrush. "She's an untouchable, Irfan. She isn't going to say anything." Untouchables were the lowest of the low in the ancient Hindu caste system and were stuck doing the dirty jobs others in society wouldn't do, like cobbler work, leather work, clearing dead animals from the road, removing raw sewage from people's toilets, and cleaning garbage from the streets. And because they had no choice but to do these dirty jobs, everybody considered them dirty. Superstition said if you touched them, you would be cursed with bad luck or be unclean yourself, tainted by them. And though her parents had never really mentioned their thoughts on the caste system, Anjali had heard such cautionary tales all her life from Chachaji, her neighbours and her classmates. Knowing there was no way this untouchable girl would speak out of place and tell on her, Anjali turned back to the job at hand. She wasn't afraid of the girl. Or Captain Brent. She was a member of the Brahmin caste after all, high-born. Anjali's slim gold bangles jingled melodiously in the morning light as she raised her brush once again and finally painted a circle onto the chalky pillar, staining it a decaying black. "There, now you finish it," she whispered, handing the paintbrush over to Irfan. Perspiring heavily, even though he was in the cool shade of the tamarind tree behind them, Irfan took the paintbrush and clumsily swatted it across the bottom of the circle. "Okay, now let's get out of here." "Quit India!" squealed Anjali, much louder than she had intended, then ducking back behind the pillar. "What was that? Who said that?" bellowed a towering white man in his gravelly British accent. Anjali and Irfan peered around the pillar, keeping hidden, and watched as the man stormed out of the bungalow. "Prince Sahib!" Irfan was frozen in panic. "Run!" shouted Anjali, dropping the small paint tin. Grabbing Irfan by the arm, she raced through the streets, leaving behind the black queue on the outer wall of the bungalow's compound, but not before glancing back at the heavy-set English officer seething at the defacement, his sunburned face turning even redder than usual. The two friends sped around the bend, Captain Brent hot on their tail. They dodged a peacock and narrowly missed the street's panwala, a wrinkly old man who was on his way to open up his shop for business. They swerved past a white horse on the side of the road, decorated with pink feathers and a gold and pink saddle, ignoring the angry shouts of its owner. They ducked around barking street dogs whose fur was thickly matted with dust. Anjali paused for a split second to pet a spotted puppy on the head, and then rounded another corner, down an alley that looked very different from the lane the bungalow stood on just a street away. "What are you doing?" huffed Irfan, trying to keep up. "Shh!" Anjali squeezed around the bend. Irfan hesitantly followed her into a basti, a small cluster of a dozen tiny clay shacks with